So according to the Department of Defense, the U.S. currently has over 1,000 bases around the globe. It makes up about 95% of the world's country's bases. Essentially, if you look at that, the sun never sets on the U.S. empire. Also, when looking at our defense budget, we find that we spend almost as much as the entire world combined, 48% to be exact. That's almost 6 times more than China, and a staggering 99 times the amount Iran spends on its military. It's no wonder the U.S. economy is crumbling, with no prospect of being saved. So today, I'd like to make the case that our hunger for military dominance is only deteriorating our economy, and that a changing foreign policy is the greatest solution. I'll be talking about how much has been spent on our military interventions, how it's led to the U.S. borrowing trillions of dollars, and the change needed to our foreign policy. So according to costofwar.com, which is part of the National Priorities Project, over $1 trillion has been spent on war since 2001. If you look, this year alone, California is losing about $2.2 billion of their federal education funds. This is causing classes, like we all see, classes are being cut. Every year it's getting harder to petition classes. So when you put that in retrospect to the amount we've been spending on these wars, it accounts 0.002%. It's less than half percent, so think about that next time you register for classes. The government is basically cutting billions in areas such as education, and yet they continue to spend the hundreds of billions on the military. Interestingly enough, according to the Pentagon, in our 2012 defense budget, the administration is seeking $550 billion just this year. Only $10 billion of that is being spent on missile defense and our aircraft. Again, that's our defense spending, supposedly. So hundreds of the billions are being spent in the foreign countries. So I'm going to look at the borrowing that we're doing. According to the U.S. Department of Treasury, we are just over $14 trillion in debt, a large sum of which is owned by China. When you divide that by the estimated U.S. population, we find that each and every one of us owes $46,000. So in order to fund our militarized empire and maintain these tax cuts that we still continue to have as the state, the government is simply borrowing all this money at a staggering rate, and while printing more and more money at home that it simply just does not have. So if we continue this into this abyss of spending and borrowing, we will most likely find ourselves like the other great empires of the past that have collapsed. So I believe that the road to recovery is a change in our foreign policy. Benjamin Franklin once said, "Consider that a great empire, like a great cake, is most easily diminished at the edges." So I believe when he said that, the resources required to maintain such a large empire would soon be engulfed, and I think we're seeing that today. We need to reduce our global bases to virtually none, I believe. Currently we spend over $100 billion just to maintain these bases. In fact, in Germany we have about 220 bases. No idea why. Secondly, we should not be invading countries without a definition of war. We did that in Iraq. We just can't invade countries on whim. Presence in these foreign countries is also the very cause by which we find ourselves there. We should invest in keeping our citizens safe at home and actually investing in domestic programs and actual defense spending. So with that said, our current imperialistic ideology will continue to wither away the foundation of our country, and money spent on defense is money not spent on education, deficit reduction, infrastructure, and domestic programs that we see hanging by a thread today.
So Laura, what did you think?
I thought that the beginning was really good with the statistics, and they got the attention immediately and helped focus on the point easier. There was lots of good statistics all throughout the entire speech. the proposals he came up with they make sense and they can work in reality. And I liked how his comparisons of they really made you see it, how our empirical attitude is going to affect the country.
All right, we've got some information about the number of bases that we have and the amount of money that we're spending, and then you put it in the context of the economy, and I think you need to have a stronger argument about the explanation about what proportion of the military budget, for instance, fuels the economy or robs the economy, depending upon the perspective that you're advancing here. You do have a very clear claim about the argument that you're making and what your goal happens to be. One of the problems is that you neglect to discuss any of the reservations or justifications that are used to advance those particular points, and so in essence it's like you've left out the entire reservation argument, and anybody who feels like there is in fact a justification for any of the military bases or any of the military actions that we've taken, you've largely written them off. You have no chance of influencing them because you haven't addressed their major reasons. You've kind of dismissed them out of hand. Sometimes the language, I think, is a little bit more provocative than it needs to be, and there's some presuppositions in the argument that need to be developed a little bit more. The notion that this is an empire or that we are acting in an imperialistic way is largely assumed. You make a conclusionary statement about the war in Iraq. Now, you may believe that that is, in fact, a war that was not justified with a declaration and that it was, therefore, inappropriate for us to do, but that's a presupposition. You need to make the argument for that as opposed to treating it as if something everybody in the audience is going to agree with. I think you undermine your argument that way. The strength of the argument happens to be in the economic area. I think you've got a good statistic about how much money, like I said, we're spending on the military and what the consequence is on spending in other places. Although you are you're kind of conflating state spending with federal spending when it comes to education, because largely the federal government is not responsible for funding education programs at the state. So you talk about the $2 billion that California's got. It's not like we're going to get that $2 billion from the feds to spend. This is our own mess that we've created here. The relationship to the military needs to be explained a lot more. I think there's way too much reading in the presentation, and sometimes it feels a little bit like you are making the argument without always feeling and explaining the argument, and so that needs to be worked on a little bit more. All right, thank you.